This is John Bailey, the epic voice of Honest Trailers, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. It's a Fangirls podcast with five-ish people. The tangents and squee will continue. Squee.
The tangents and squee continue all the way to episode 428 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. This is my war alone, and I'm the last person standing between them and what they truly want. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like we do with the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. I am back from vacation.
Yeah, and now Brittany's on vacation.
Yes, it's that time of year. It's the end of summer, and everyone's trying to squeeze one more thing in before the kids have to go back to school.
Or it gets too cold to go outside and do anything.
Cold, or whatever it is that you're like, summer is almost over.
Yep.
But take heart, it's going to be fall, and I've already started seeing the Halloween stuff in stores, and I'm actually getting excited.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite
I've seen
thing...
Halloween stuff. I saw a Spirit Halloween on my drive home from Gen Con one of the days a couple weeks ago. That was the first weekend of August, and I was seeing Spirit Halloween. So, yeah.
So my favorite thing on a tangent, I saw a post that was reviewing these, and they're supposed to be at Spirit Halloween, but there are these you get a pack of 4, and they're banners, and they are of the stretching pictures from the Haunted Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
I mean, they're not exact replicas, because those would probably be more expensive. But but you hang them on like your door or your wall, and I'm like, I want them. Like, there's the one of the girl on the tightrope over the crocodile. There's the one of the gravesite, and I can't remember what the other two were, but I just remember the crocodile one.
It's the guy standing on a keg of dynamite.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
the tightrope walker above the crocodiles. There's the seemingly Black Widow old lady sitting on top of one of her dearly departed husband's graves with the axe hatchet embedded in the tombstone. And then the other one is crap. Don't take my Disney card away.
I just saw a post about it.
There's a lot of ghosts in that Haunted Mansion that you.
Yeah, I know, but the stretching room is like one of the first things you encounter when you walk in.
I know.
So, okay, hold on. I gotta look. It's the guys in quick stand sitting on top of each other. I was like, I know the other one involves men because there's 4 of them. 2 of them are men, 2 of them are female. So yeah, it's the guys stacked on top of each other as they sink in a quick stand. So. Don't take away my Disney card.
You'll be fine. But yeah, I guess they're going to be sold at Spirit Halloween, and I'm like, I am so they're like $33, and I'm like, for more of those things.
Yeah, and they are official because Spirit Halloween does carry official Disney license Haunted Mansion stuff. I saw some stuff last year, but the quality might not be super amazing, but it's genuine. So
yeah. So those they look fun, and I'm excited for that. That really wasn't a piece of news, but I just saw them and I got excited because I'm like, Halloween's coming.
It is.
I haven't had a chance to see it, but I heard that the movie is actually pretty good, or fun at least. So I'm like, maybe that'll be a good one for.
Yeah, it's not anything groundbreaking, but it's entertaining, especially if you're a fan of the attraction, because apparently there's a lot of references and Easter eggs. So if you know your Haunted Mansion attraction,
it doesn't need to be groundbreaking. It just needs to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm cool with that. So check your local Spirit Halloween if you are interested.
Yep. So Halloween is coming.
Yes.
Yeah, we honestly don't really have a whole lot in the way of news. It's been kind of quiet.
Yeah, not much going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's like conventions going on seemingly every week, so but it's back to school time, and unfortunately, it's probably going to continue to be quiet while the strikes continue.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
The stuff that's completed will get released, but while they're while people are the WGA and the SAG are on strike, it's just going to be quiet.
Yep, and I have heard rumors that studios might move back release dates. I have not heard anything concrete.
Oh yeah,
but
I would almost guarantee it.
Yeah, just to stretch out what they already have in the can, as it were.
Yeah,
so that they're not left with, well, what do we throw in there? And it's like, pull out some of your old classics and throw those in theaters. People love that stuff. It's not that hard. Whatever. I mean,
which Disney was doing that anyway because they're celebrating their 100th anniversary. So it's like, hey, this worked well for us.
I know. Like, okay, so Alex's birthday. Well, I'll get on another tangent. Alex's birthday was on Saturday, and we celebrated while we were on vacation because we were with family. But we also wanted to do something for him on the actual day. And I'm like, I don't think we have the first Toy Story. And I'm like, I'm gonna go see if I can find it at a store. Well, they have certain movies in the 100th anniversary packaging, but I have to register a little bit of disappointment because they have nothing older than the original Little Mermaid.
Oh, you're kidding!
You don't even have like Snow White or anything that you're gonna release, or is that coming later? But yeah, it's all like okay. It's not strictly true. They did have a couple of sets of like Mickey and Minnie cartoons from way back when, but I'm like, okay, I get it. Little Mermaid, Finding Nemo, Toy Story. So I got that Toy Story. Was my point. What else? Brave was in there for some reason, which I didn't. I like Brave, but I didn't think it was one that's like, here, we're gonna do a collector's item for the 100th anniversary. I'm like, okay, what about like Snow White or Cinderella or Pinocchio?
Well, I know supposedly they put some of them in the vault, but I don't know if they've unvaulted them. So who knows? Vault schmalt, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I don't know, but I was just looking like, oh, these are cool, 100th anniversary. Wait a minute, like, you guys, you did really good stuff in the olden days too. So come on. But anyway, I just was like, okay, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
But we got him Toy Story. He was very excited about that. So, but then we went and we'd never watched any Star Wars movies with him, but he's been playing Lego Star Wars all summer, basically, and I think he's better at it than I am. This is the one that was on the Xbox 360, so it's just got the first 6 movies, so the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. And I'm like looking at it, and he's at 44. It shows you like your progress. He's like at 44%, and he's done all the free plays, and he's done all this, and I'm just like, you need to go back to school, kid. But he also got, I'm going all over the place because we don't have news, but he also got these action figures, these big kind of chunky galactic heroes things is what they're called, and it stars Vader, Chewbacca, and a stormtrooper. Got those for his birthday. It's all come in a set. Oh my gosh, he loves them. In fact, I went into his room to go get something, and he had all 3 of them guarding his water bottle on his side table.
Nice.
But he was so excited. He's like, "It's Darth Vader, Mommy." I'm like, "Yes, it is."
I know which side of the Force you're leaning towards.
Yes.
They have cookies.
Yes, they do.
And it's funny because in the free play,
they tried to give me some at PopCon in Louisville. I'm just saying, the Sith side, they tried to give me cookies. They do have them. So, I've seen them.
So in Lego Star Wars, the first one they did, you can do free play after you beat each level, and then you can take whatever character you want in there. He keeps taking like Darth Vader and Count Dooku and all these others, and he doesn't even want to play. He just wants to force choke everybody.
Oh boy!
The game, I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to have a discussion about this. But he loves it. He's like, even the ones where it's like, you got to fight Darth Maul, or like in the level where Anakin, where Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting on Mustafar. He's like, but I wanted Darth Vader to fight R2-D2. I'm like, what did R2-D2 ever do to you? So I'm like, well, you're having fun, and it is cute.
Or maybe he's along the lines of C-3PO and he can't stand R2-D2 sass.
Maybe. But anyway, we watched A New Hope on Saturday with them, and then Lottie wanted to watch it again yesterday. Sunday. So it's like, I need to see RD2 is what she calls it.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm like, my kids are awesome.
A couple more missions accomplished, goals and achievements met with the kids in Star Wars.
Yes, indeed. Just gotta figure out, like, okay, how do we ease them into Empire Strikes Back? I'm like,
yeah,
but I think episode 3 would probably be the one that's the most scary because younglings.
Yes.
Say that.
Yeah.
But we will proceed with caution. Yes. We've got it all sort of mapped.
I don't know anything about a whole lot about kids this age, but it's like, would they necessarily be able to understand what's happening with the younglings? I would think maybe like the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, where Anakin essentially gets set on fire. That would be scary.
Yeah, and he might actually be okay because he has played the games. I mean, he knows it goes through, and so he knows the story. He knows all the twists and whatever. But and it might be fine. Like with Alex and his autism, I can never. It's really hard for me to pin down. Like, are you gonna be okay? Like, there's some things I think, oh, he'll be fine, and no, he's not fine. And then there's things I'm like, I'm not sure, and then he's okay. So it's just kind of, we'll wing it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's just with kids in general.
Well, yes, that too. But he's my first one, so this is my So I'm like relearning how to be a mom because Lottie doesn't have any of that, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is how. Oh, yeah, that's called that's parenting for you.
Yeah.
We're all learning. We're all on a learning curve here.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing but a big old learning experience the entire time. So, my!
I got us on a tangent there.
Yeah, hey, it's been a hot minute. You were due. We actually went on several tangents recording Gold Standard last night. How's that for a segue? So we do have a little bit of housekeeping. So Gold Standard, we have this month's Patreon episode now available for the Patreon supporters. So we did the 1984 classic Karate Kid, and it was kind of funny because Zan had never seen it. And Nick, I think this was like a first time like watch through from beginning to end for him. I had seen it before. I've seen it a couple of times. So it was kind of weird to have seemingly such a classic 80s film that is so enmeshed in the culture zeitgeist and have people that have never seen it. So, and both of them now we're all like, I'm gonna go watch Cobra Kai on Netflix. So, I was like, okay, well, they've been converted.
Karate Kid 2 was good. 3,
yeah. So I mean, you wouldn't necessarily think like a cheesy, like kids-ish young adult movie like that would really have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about, actually. It's definitely some of these movies track different once you become an adult, because there's things that you miss, because it had been ages since I had seen it, and I could guarantee the whole Mr. Miyagi like Japanese internment camp thing went right over my head as a kid.
Oh yeah.
So we had a lovely discussion about how we treated the Japanese people in America absolutely horrifically during World War II, and how that does not get discussed a whole lot. And just how cheesy 80s movies can be. And how distinctly 80s this one is. It is definitely
montage music scenes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although he doesn't really have a training montage, because his training is waxing cars and painting fences and sanding floors.
So he montage is probably a better phrase.
Yeah, he does it. You really don't get the traditional training montage. So it does subvert a few things.
Yeah.
But both Stan and Nick have been converted and both want to watch Cobra Kai now. So so that is available on Patreon. So
go check that out.
Yep. Oh, and we had some feedback, and that got me thinking about some potential ideas for what we could do once we get caught up. We already have some ideas, but some other ideas on top of the ideas that we already have. So for the Patreon folks that maybe want maybe an opportunity to maybe have a bit more influence on the show, we have some ideas. So
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, which may or may not turn around and bite us in the butt down the road. We'll see. But you will have to wait and see once
Patreon people.
Yeah. So you're just gonna have to wait and see as we get closer to getting to the most recent Best Picture winner to find out what kind of craziness we're gonna get ourselves into for the future after that. So and then over here in our feeds, we are going to have a little extra squee available for you folks.
Yay!
Both on YouTube, and I think I'll put it in the actual feed as well. Although we had our cameras on, so if you listen to the audio only, you may miss a few things, like seeing her cat. But I had a chat with Corissa Grant, who she is with Worthy Chaos Comics, and she is a comic writer and creator, and she has a series called Redemption, and she sent me the first couple issues to read, so I would know what the heck she's talking about. But it's a mix of like she's highly influenced for things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural and The Walking Dead, type
paranormal type of stuff.
Yeah, the paranormal monsters type genre storytelling. So her series, her comic book series Redemption, is about these two characters, Seraphina and Draven, who knew each other's kids and ended up getting separated for 10 years, and then they meet back up again as adults, and they are essentially fighting demonic forces that have come to Earth. There's a battle
As one
between
does.
heaven and hell, and they get caught in the crosshairs. So
Interesting.
yeah. But you can get the first 3 issues right now are available either digital download or printed copies off of their website. And then I believe as we're recording this, starting, I think she said tomorrow. I'll have to double check but she's doing a Kickstarter for the next issues. So she's got the entire thing written out, because it started out as a like a LARP between her and some of her friends. So she just took all of the plot and character and world building and is translating it into comic form. So Redemption is going to have 70 issues, I think, for the entire run or something like that. And then she's already got a prequel and the kind of ready to go eventually, and then kind of a alternate universe storyline that's already fleshed out as well. So but yeah, I mean, we talked about comics and what it's like being an independent comic creator. We talked about what it's like, specifically her experience as a woman in comics and how it's not necessarily been all sunshine and roses. We talked about all sorts of things. So not all of it was necessarily comic. It's specifically her comic related. So, and we talked for an hour. The interview is an hour long. So, but yeah, her cat makes an appearance towards the beginning. So the video for that will be up on our YouTube. And then if you're not too concerned about being able to see her cat, and Chauncey bringing me dinner towards the end, then you can just listen to the audio version. So
cool.
So, and then I'll have link to the Kickstarter in the show notes as well. So if you want to go back, the Kickstarter. So
I just pulled up their website. It says the Kickstarter is live.
I'm on Kickstarter right now, and it says upcoming project. So
okay.
Yep.
Maybe just the landing page is
there
to follow.
Yeah, because she's done Kickstarters for the series a few times and has been successful every time so far. So
awesome.
In fact, some of her Kickstarters have done better than some naysayers out there that told her that she wasn't doing it right. So,
well, as I understand it, the comic scene in general, especially those who are in the top echelons of the industry, are very protective, we shall say, of their spot, and any sort of upstart, which is why a lot of indie comic creators, doesn't matter who you are, they kind of get pushed down and ooh, if you're doing Kickstarted comics and you are somehow less than. But then there's all these Kickstarted comics that are doing better than some of the Marvel DC ones. And really, it seems like doing indie stuff as in other areas of entertainment and creativity, doing it independently kind of seems the way to go through either Kickstarter or what have you. So, this is just me hearing it from people who've been there. And I'm like, that's actually kind of fascinating how we're kind of getting away from, I have to get a job with one of the big the big names in order to have success, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. If you've got an idea, go make it, go do it. Yeah. That's comics, that's novels. I mean, geez, my husband just finished his next novel. It's going to go to the editor soon when she has a minute. And I mean, it's, you know, you might not get a big blockbuster movie deal, but you get an audience, and it's you have your little fan base, and that's great. So you know, go indie. I'm a big fan of indie publishing of any stripe. So go do stuff. This is actually a really good time to dip your toe into self-publishing or self-creating. If that's your jam.
Yep.
There's my pep talk for anybody. Yep. You've got an idea, just go do it.
So that's kind of it for housekeeping. So, and then we've got just a little bit of feedback from Shalane, talking about the movie that's still on everybody's brain of Barbie. And she says, I could see Barbie getting nominated at the Kids' Choice Awards for favorite movie, Best Actress, and Best Actor. Yeah, Kids' Choice, People's Choice.
Yeah,
all the fan ones. Definitely Barbie is probably going to be a big one. So I think you are absolutely right, Shalane. So yeah. And that's really that. So we will move on to this week's main topic, which is Marvel's Secret Invasion, which has got the Marvel community all kind of in a tizzy. For various reasons that we're still talking about, even though the finale was weeks ago. So they at first glance, it doesn't seem like this was really a whole, because it's only 6 episodes. For the Marvel series that have been out on Disney Plus so far, I mean, this was quantity wise not a lot. Right. It is 6 episodes. And it's not like super like world groundbreaking, shaking things up, but you have to remember that Secret Wars is coming down the pipeline. So this is setting up is what this is doing. This is laying groundwork.
This is setting up the pins for the bowling ball to come and knock all pins down.
Exactly. So although we still got some surprises, like learning that Nick Fury is married.
Yeah, did not see that one coming,
and has been for a while. And not only that, his wife is a Skrull. It's like, hello, Mrs. Fury. So
I'm actually surprised that none of like the Hydras or the anybody who would have a vendetta against Fury actually ferreted that information out. That just that he was married.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he has done. I think being in S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm assuming that he took very similar lengths to hide her, like they did for Clint and his wife and kids.
It came out of left field. Let's just say that
it kind of does, but at the same time, if you go back to what are you doing? Certain stuff there. What are you doing? You're wrapping a present.
Sorry.
If you go back to Captain America: Winter Soldier, if you remember, after Nick gets attacked in the streets, and then he shows up at Steve's apartment, and he's got the music playing. Or Sharon Carter's like, "Hey, you left your radio on." And when Steve walks in, and Nick Fury is, he's all like, "What are you doing here, Nick Fury?" And Nick Fury's like, "Had a fight with a wife." And Steve's like, "I didn't know you had a wife." And he's like, "There's a lot of things you don't know about me." It's like, at the time we just thought, Nick was being kind of a smart ass.
Yeah. Which
obviously he did not have a fight with a wife. He got attacked in the middle of the street by what turned out to be Hydra. Part. Yeah, but it's just kind of funny because now it actually is like, no, Steve, he actually does have a wife.
It's kind of along the same thing.
It makes that scene just hit so differently.
And so... And it's kind of like the train ride. Tell me one thing that I don't know about you and so. Kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, on the Secret Invasion, Secret Wars, the Skrull invasion. Obviously, that is a classic storyline from the comics. So obviously the live action, the MCU, they're gonna do their own version. And excuse me. Well, it's about the Skrulls. It's almost so much more than that, because it's more just, as far as the MCU is concerned, where they are now, because this is 2025 in the universe. So they are a couple years post return blip. So all the people that got blipped away, people like Nick Fury, are, as we saw in things like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and even in Spider-Man Far From Home, and then Spider-Man No Way Home, and even WandaVision, the Disney Plus series that we've had since Endgame, is not everyone was able to just like jump back in and go back to everything just being all hunky-dory. Having half of, even just talking about Earth, having half of the world's population disappear for 5 years and then suddenly reappear. You don't just bounce back from that. And and this is just another opportunity for us to see how some of these characters that we've known for a long time. I mean, Nick Fury has been there. Rhodey has been, well, a version of Rhodey. Obviously, the first Iron Man, it's Terrence Howard, but still, Rhodey has been there from the first Iron Man. So it's like, some of these characters we've known for 15 years, and as far as we're concerned, and there's still so much that we don't know about them. Yeah, as Tony Stark says in the first Avengers, Nick Fury is not a spy, he's the spy.
Yeah.
And this absolutely proves why Nick Fury, as infallible as he is, because at the end of the day, he's human, just like a lot of the rest of us and a lot of the people in S.H.I.E.L.D. That, he's going to make mistakes, but he's trying his damnedest. And he's not always going to get it right. He's going to, unfortunately, it's not his fault that he didn't know that Hydra had been secretly embedding themselves in S.H.I.E.L.D. since the day S.H.I.E.L.D., Howard Stark founded it post-World War II.
They got played really well. It was a good long con.
Yeah. So, and it's like, after the events of Captain Marvel, the idea was that, Carol, obviously, has to break free of the brainwashing that the Kree had essentially put her under, after her incident with the Tesseract, and realize that the Skrulls are not the enemy. And this whole idea was that between Nick and presumably Shield to a point, and Carol, who can travel off-world easily enough, we're going to help the Skrulls. Because, their home had been destroyed by the Kree, and it just turns out that they could not find some place that the Skrulls could live, because any place they found that was potentially habitable, either other people on that, races or whatever on that same planet or on nearby planets are like, no, we don't want the Skrulls here. It was like the Skrulls were like contaminated or something to the rest of the universe, and people were just like, no, we don't want you. It's like that's the scene in Forrest Gump when he gets on the bus for the first time and all the kids are like, no, you can't sit here, the seat's taken. I'm sure that's probably what it felt like with Nick Fury trying to find a home for the Skrulls. So this idea of this population who's literally lost their home, that's been destroyed, and they just want a place to settle down. And for the most, and a good chunk of them, they're integrating themselves and they're figuring out how to exist. Talos is obviously a huge example of that. But there's a faction of the Skrulls that feel like they have been let down, and they're like, fine, if we can't go to another planet to rebuild our society, well, we're just going to take over Earth. And that's what we're encountering this with Gravik. This renegade Skrull who's decided, screw Earth and the Earthlings. They were no help to us. We're just going to take over the planet, and we're going to do it by manipulating politics, essentially, by replacing high-powered people, and manipulating various countries, mostly the United States and Russia, because we've never had issues with the Russians ever in our entire existence. Go listen to every episode we've done so far of Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire. I'm pretty sure we just talk about the Russians in almost every episode.
That's quite a reoccurring theme in that
one. They're a reoccurring theme, and they're not done yet either. Unfortunately. This is why we do the Billy Joel thing, because you can see how it ties into real life. You can tie media and real life together. Your Gravik is like, well, if we get the US and Russia to just start lobbing nukes at each other, then the planet will be destroyed and we can just take over, because apparently Skrulls are immune to radiation. So like, hey, nuclear holocaust, not a problem. It ain't gonna bother us. And in the process, he also was like, let's make super Skrulls. Essentially taking, the Skrulls already have the ability to shapeshift, and enhancing their DNA, nay, mutating, so that they can have other abilities on top of their shapeshifting abilities. And the Super Skrull in the comics is a single character. That's not the case in this. We end up with multiple. Well, we end up with at least 2 Super Skrulls, because Gravik turns himself into a Super Skrull, and then Talos's daughter, grown-up daughter, who's played by Emilia Clarke, Gia, she ends up taking on the Super Skrull. It's wild to see the DNA samples of various species and other things throughout the MCU and they like pop up on the screen, because it'd be like Cull Obsidian, Extremis, because Extremis never caused anyone issues ever in the MCU. Groot, Drax the Destroyer, Mantis, like most of the Guardians of the Galaxy. This wild mishmash of various abilities and powers. It's rather wild, but it's at the end of the day, obviously Gravik, at least as far as his seemingly plan, isn't successful. But again, obviously it's not. While his plan is not successful, it does. There are some speed bumps along the way. We lose Maria Hill, unfortunately. That actually was Hill. That was not a Skrull that got shot by Gravik, disguised as Nick Fury. Like, who in their right? Like, seriously, who in their right mind would think the actual Nick Fury, would kill Maria Hill in cold blood in the middle of a marketplace in Russia surrounded by people?
No. He'd take her out somewhere else where there would be no witnesses.
Yeah, it's like, even if he thought she was a Skrull, I don't think he would have done it right there and then, just in case he happened to be wrong. But it's like they kept threatening to release
witnesses.
Yeah, it's like they keep threatening to release this footage. I'm like, who in their right mind would think that, like, Hill has been Fury's right-hand person?
To quote Tony Stark, not a great plan.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So, but it does cost us Maria Hill. So, Maria is no longer with us, unfortunately. And we see the Skrull replacements get destroyed, because we see Martin Freeman to kick off the entire series, but that's not Shuri's favorite white boy colonizer. That's a Skrull. So thankfully, we're not, we have not lost, Martin Freeman as far as the MCU is concerned yet. So, although somehow I think, Val would not be too sad to lose her ex-husband. We lose Talos, which is kind of sad. Because I really like Ben Mendelsohn as Talos. He was a really good character. And while he and Fury, had their disagreements about things, they obviously really cared about each other and considered each other friends, which is good. Thankfully, Gia, who, when we first meet her, was a follower of Gravik, thankfully changes her tune when she realizes Gravik is really batshit crazy and also killed her mother. So she changes sides, which is good. And she's I think Emilia Clarke took to this role really, really well. I think she's a good addition. I think she's a really good addition to the MCU. And so is Olivia Colman. You want to talk about someone who came in and just like chewed the scenery with every scene that she is in. So she's Sonia Fallsworth. She's essentially the Nick Fury equivalent at MI6. She is something else. I love Olivia Colman, and the more stuff I see her in, the more I love her. Because she is just so, I don't know how to describe this character, because she's like, she can be your best friend and then easily stab you in the back a second later if she thinks it'll help her accomplish her mission. It's like, she and Nick Fury, while they see eye to eye on some things, they're not friends. They are frenemies. So, but she's just so, like, there's a scene where she is torturing a guy about information about like what Gravik is up to, and the guy is a Skrull who's running around in a human form, and she's torturing him, like literally torturing him, like she's cutting off fingers
and just enjoying
it. Like, she will cut off your finger and then ask you if you would like a cup of tea and would you like milk or sugar in it. Like, she's so, the way that she portrays this character, it's like she's always going to keep you like off kilter, because you just have no idea whether she's gonna like give you a present or if she's gonna shoot you in the head, or she could do both. The present could be a shot in the head, who knows?
Right, yeah.
And at the same yes, and at the same time, it's like she's so just like charming, you almost want to be like, thank her for it.
It's like here, let me stab you in the back, but you're gonna be smiling the whole time because you do so well.
Like, you could almost take that montage in Mean Girls where the students in the school are talking about what's her face? Regina George. And all they're doing is saying how awful she is, but they're all doing it with like a smile on their face, like it's like the best thing ever, how awful she is. This is if Regina George grew up and became a high-ranking official at MI6, that is what Sonya Fallsworth is. Pre-redemption Regina George. So it's like
if Regina George never got out of freshman year.
Yeah.
and was given permission to just
it was given way too much power. So but
charming.
It's just so good. So, and I'm glad that it seems like she's sticking around. And she has taken Gia under her wing for reasons that are to be determined. So it's like, you almost have to, it's like, part of me is like, I wonder if Sonya and Val are working together.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And part of me is like, oh, that could be very interesting, but at the same time, like, oh, that could be very, 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 very bad.
I'm almost thinking a spy versus spy scenario where they both try to take each other out.
Yeah, because it's like, are they working together? Like, is Gia going to be brought into the Thunderbolts? Because with her Super Skrull powers, that could be very helpful for the Thunderbolts. But at the same time, it's like, we don't need the Thunderbolts having that kind of
arsenal,
power at the ready. So yeah. It's like, then part of me is kind of like, maybe they're working on opposite sides, and maybe Gia will be working against the Thunderbolts, which that doesn't necessarily mean she's on the good side of like the Avengers, but I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
We got too many sides we need to keep track of.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is we don't know for sure. And that's one of the things that leaves you questioning by the time we get to the end of this series. Like, we still get some answers, like the roadie that we see throughout this entire series is a Skrull, which a lot of people assumed even before the series ever started. They're like, Rhodey's a Skrull. Rhodey is going to be a Skrull. And it's really obvious too that this Rhodey is not our Rhodey.
No.
Like the personality is just not right.
Tony would have noticed
Rhodey.
within 2 steps into the room that that's not Rhodey.
Yeah. So the thing is supposedly, according to the director, because it's the same guy that directed all 6 episodes of this, assuming to keep things, continuity as far as like the feel and everything. So supposedly in an interview or something, the guy that directed the entire series claims that Rhodey has been a Skrull since Civil War. I do not buy that.
No.
Because I don't see even some of the Skrulls that are very dedicated to taking, if they're taking over the lives of somebody that's like well known. Granted, from Civil War on, nobody would have known that that's where this is supposed to go. But still, let's pretend that they knew. I don't care who the Skrull is. There is no way that someone taking over for somebody as like well known as a colonel, not just, he's a high-ranking official in the military. He's a colonel in the U.S. Air Force, which is already kind of a big deal. That's a high rank in the U.S. military. On top of it, he's best friends with Tony Stark, who is famous in his own right, and then becomes War Machine, and essentially, an extension of the Avengers. There's no way that a Skrull could take on that particular life and like not falter at some point or so. Like, would you really think a Skrull would be willing to go into battle against someone like Thanos just because they've taken over the life of somebody like Rhodey?
No.
Well, if they really wanted to be terribly unbelievable, and if they had the cojones to do this, they could have claimed that it happened when Don Cheadle became Rhodey. Rhodey after Terrence Howard bound.
That would have made a little more sense.
It's like oh, we could do it this way and make that explanation of the recasting. I heard someone talk about like, well, why don't you just say that, because it makes just as much sense.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, then why did nobody acknowledge that Rhodey does not look like Terrence Howard anymore?
Yeah. Well, they're asking us to believe that these characters are just that stupid.
Yeah.
That they wouldn't notice.
I mean, I don't know. So, supposedly that's what the director said, and that's because that's what the higher ups told him. But just from a storyline standpoint, I can't believe that when, again, I was having this conversation with Nick last night as we were waiting on Zan before we recorded the Patreon episode last night, because he recently rewatched Endgame, and he's like, I told myself I was not going to cry, and then Tony's like, I am Iron Man, and he's like, I was just bawling. I'm like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, and I'm reminded of it every day because y'all got me that exact Funko Pop for my birthday earlier this year. Thank you very much. So it's like I have a beat up Tony Stark with the Infinity Stones on his hand, getting ready to destroy Thanos. It's like Tony's sacrifice and ultimate death, and having that the funeral scene, and not have that actually be his best friend, cheapens the entire thing.
So where's Rhodey? Where's the real Rhodey in all of this? Then
he's being held captive with with Martin Freeman and all the other people that have been replaced. But it's just a matter of when the replacement happened. To me, post Endgame makes more sense, because after Tony dies, they everyone breaks off to do their own thing. Obviously, Fat Thor goes with the Guardians of the Galaxy for a while. Carol goes off to do whatever Carol does. Thor, or Bruce goes off to do Doctor Strange goes back, and Peter, and everybody goes off to do their own thing, and Rhodey goes back to being part of the military. And then we see him a little bit in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where he's working his way up in the more political side of things. Working with eventually working up to being the like working side by side with the President of the United States in Secret Invasion. So the Rhodey we see in Falcon and Winter Soldier, that I could probably accept that at that point Rhodey has been replaced, because we don't get enough of him to see a potential personality change. But I could see somewhere in the post Endgame, everybody's trying to get back to life post snap fix, and easily swapping him out with a Skrull while things are in chaos with the return of all these billions of people.
Yeah, especially where that chunk, that part belongs to the Infinity Saga. That part's done. Stop mucking around with it. It's like, if you want to move forward, this is a nickel's worth of free advice, Marvel. If you want to move forward, you've got to look at what's in front of you and work with that, and stop just trying to harken back to the quote unquote glory days when you had all this other stuff going on. Because if you keep doing that, people are going to be like, so are we doing a new thing or not? Because you keep saying, oh, well, we keep retconning back here during Civil War or whatever, and it's like, no, that don't work there, honey. Like, you gotta you have your new story now. Work with this. Work within this framework, so that we can keep everything straight.
Yeah.
So saying that Rhodey was replaced at Civil War, I'm like, yeah, Chris X'd out.
Yeah. Exactly. And I just think, again, I think it cheapens everything that happened in Infinity War and Endgame with Tony specifically.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So it's just that I'd hope with maybe as things start picking up again and they get back into production and things, that maybe they'll get their story straight, because again, we're only hearing that from one person. Granted, it's the series director, but who knows? Who knows who actually told him that? Maybe he misunderstood them, or maybe they were like, they're still trying to leave it very ambiguous, because when Gravik is beaten and Gia goes and rescues the people that have been held at this the Skrull compound, of all things, at a old nuclear power plant location, because again, the radiation does not bother them. They're being held in these suspension. Looks very similar actually to the kind of the suspension that was used on Carol in Captain Marvel. When I love how they go down the line and they're releasing the British Prime Minister and the head of the president of China and all these people and Rhodey, but they leave Ross while he's awake, they still left him strapped.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that was intentional or what, but I thought it was funny. It's like, all of you people are really important. We're going to release you, and Ross will get to you. We'll let you free here in a sec.
Yeah. We'll let you sit and think
Your
about
ex-wife
what you
says
did.
hi.
Yeah.
I don't know. But Rhodey asks,
Something.
he's like, and the fact that when he first gets free and comes out of the suspension thing, like he's not walking really well, and people are like, well, that just proves that's the Rhodey that got injured, in Civil War. And I'm like, no, he's been like in suspension for a while. His legs have not been used for a while. Anybody would be like, newborn baby deer stumbly
Right.
after a while. So that's not
how straight do you walk when you first wake up in the morning?
exactly.
Yeah.
Or after you've sat for too long.
Yeah, that's just overnight.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, again, that does not necessarily indicate anything. And then when Rhodey asks how long he's been there, they just say a long while, which in universe, it has been 2 years since Endgame. So if he was replaced at some point post Endgame during the chaos of the world trying to right itself, then 2 years, that's a significant amount of time for him to be held captive. So I would totally get that. So
I have taken the attitude, that Nick Fury, funnily enough, does is, I recognize the committee has made a decision, but since it's a stupid ass decision, I will like to ignore it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's like head
canon is a lot more powerful than you think it is. Just saying.
Well, and really, in this case, until they canonize something in universe, I'm sticking with my headcanon. So, and until I am told otherwise in universe. So, and even in universe, sometimes they will fudge things. When they realize that this stuff doesn't quite fit.
There are some things that happen in
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
There are some things that still happen in universe. I'm like, nope, I like mine better.
Well, yeah. But as far as this particular timeline is concerned, it's become quite the talking point among the fandom, I will say, on people thinking,
honestly, they probably shouldn't have given it a specific time frame, because I don't think it really matters. Let's just let people speculate and theorize. And I mean, okay, later on, if it really does matter to like have a huge significant plot, is a plot element for something else, like, okay, then we can pin it down. But just let it be a while, and people can come to their own conclusions. That's the fun of it, and so don't take the fun out of it.
Yeah,
that's
it's like
take.
Right now, it's not necessary that it needs to be pinned down. When we get Armor Wars, once we get when we see Rhodey again, it could potentially be important, because going forward, it's like, because for a lot of people, and it's I think it's more emotional more than anything, is, does Rhodey know if his best friend is dead?
Right.
Because will that determine Rhodey going forward? It's like if he missed that, that's gonna who knows what that's gonna do to him psychologically. So, and again, but
I feel like we've tread over the psychological, break down our heroes water. I think we've treaded that water well enough. I think we need to not do that anymore.
Yeah,
that's me personally. It's like, come on.
Yeah,
it's like, not everybody
I
has to be a
playing armchair psychologist.
Oh, I know.
It's one of my favorite hobbies, because it makes me feel better. Just wait till next week, people. So, but yeah. So yeah, it's and then Nick Fury decides to go back to the space station up in the sky, but he takes his wife with him this time. So, because according to Fury, the Kree have decided that they are willing to have peace talks with the Skrulls, which I'm sure will not factor into some of the plot of the Marvels when it gets released in November at all. So so yeah, like Nick Fury, he goes through all of this, being the spy, and even though Shield is even technically Shield is not even a thing anymore. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's not like the Shield that we were introduced to 15 years ago. But like he's got at one point he needs to get the samples of various Avengers DNA that got collected after the Endgame battle, that he's got hidden in his headstone in Norway. And I love how Olivia Colman's like, it's like, don't you have another one of these elsewhere? And he's like, I got them all over the place. Apparently Nick Fury's got fake grave sites like all over the planet, because apparently man needs options. I'm assuming different quotes on them, because this one, because obviously the one that we see in Winter Soldier has got the quote from Pulp Fiction on it. And this one's got a different quote on it. So but yeah, so Nick decides to hightail it back off the planet to the Saber station, but he takes his wife with him, because apparently she would be a really good diplomatic negotiator in his opinion. And then Gia goes off with Olivia Colman to do whatever it is Olivia Colman wants, because that's the way it works right now.
So yeah.
And we're just kind of
we're just here.
Yeah, we're just kind of stuck waiting, because the thing is we know Gravik super scrolled himself.
Right.
We know that Gia super scrolled herself. We don't know if there were any others that were super scrolled, because by the time that Gia and Gravik have their showdown, Gravik is essentially mass murdered whoever was still at their compound when he got there. So there's a lot of Skrulls that are now dead, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some out there that got super scrolled and are off somewhere. That potentially could surface in the future. And even there are probably some Skrulls, because Talos told us that 1 million Skrulls ended up becoming refugees on the planet. So, at one point there were 1 million Skrulls on the planet, and we can't, I don't think we can safely assume that most of them just took up random identities and are just living happy-go-lucky lives. Like Nick Fury's wife, she took over the identity of a woman who was a doctor who died of a heart defect, a congenital heart defect, and the woman whose life she took over actually agreed to it. So, but not necessarily everybody did that. But we also can't assume that most of the Skrulls just took on random faces and are just living happy-go-lucky lives looking like humans. So there's so many Skrulls out there unaccounted for that may or may not be enhanced, that could pop up down the line and either be a help or a hindrance to the stuff that's coming down the line as far as the MCU is concerned. Because this one thing that kept popping up throughout this series is people kept asking Nick Fury, why don't you call the Avengers? Why don't you call the Avengers? And Nick Fury's like, no, because I don't want the Avengers getting involved with Skrulls, where Skrulls could start taking on the identities of the Avengers. Rhodey not, being the exception, which is very smart on Nick Fury's behalf. And really, this is not an Avenger level thing, not yet. Obviously, by the time we get to Secret Wars, it could be. So yeah, I know some people are like, oh, this kind of ended on a whimper. Like the fight between Gravik and Gia wasn't like super amazing. But I don't think that's the point, really. Gravik just needed to be dealt with to get him out of the way to pave the road for potentially bigger issues that will likely pop up in the future. So this is not the last time we've seen the Skrulls. I could almost guarantee it. And and who knows who else has been replaced? People in positions of power could potentially be replaced, and we have no idea, because it's not just like leaders of countries and politics that have power. I mean, obviously they have a good chunk of it, but you're talking about heads of major corporations and all sorts of people that could have influence that could potentially have been replaced. So this is potentially, I'm left, even through the series, and now that it's over, I'm part of me. There's the part of me when it comes to the MCU now that's a little paranoid. Like, I don't know if I can trust what I watch from here on out. Like, what have you done? What have you done to my beautiful MCU? So, yeah. So it's a good series. Like I said, it's only 6 episodes. I think Samuel Jackson does some really good acting as Nick Fury in this. He there's a scene when he and Talos are on a train, and he's telling Nick Fury's telling the story about how he rode a train with his mom as a kid, and they had to eat their lunch out of a shoebox. And that's actually a story from Samuel Jackson's real life.
Oh, cool.
He would ride on a train with his mother, and because of segregation, they were not allowed to go to the dining car, and therefore their lunch was brought to them in a shoebox. So yeah, some of the stuff that Nick Fury brings up as his experiences as an African American are from Samuel Jackson's actual experiences as a young Black man in during segregation. So which we talked about some of Samuel Jackson's work with the civil rights movement when we pulled his name from the hat. So if you want to go listen to that episode to learn a bit more about Samuel Jackson, I recommend it. So hear about his connections to Martin Luther King Jr. and how much he loves. Did we talk about how much he loves golf? I don't remember if we brought that up when we talked about it. I don't know if we did or not. I came across a clip when they were doing press for the series, because obviously this was pre the strike, so they were still doing press for the series before it came out, and the interviewer asked Samuel Jackson if he was aware of anyone else, any of the other actors in the MCU who claimed to have a good golf game. because apparently Samuel Jackson has it in all of his contracts that he has to get like one day, like a week or whatever, to play golf. Obviously, weather permitting, because he really, really loves playing golf. And apparently, Tom Holland has claimed that he has a decent golf game. Samuel Jackson wasn't buying it. Apparently, Anthony Mackie talks up the fact that he's supposed to have a really good golf game, but Samuel Jackson says that's a load of BS. So.
Of course, when it comes to golf and all those other sports, fishing, yeah, you always try to make yourself better than what you actually are.
Yeah. So when it comes to Samuel Jackson, if you think you're good at golf, I wouldn't bring it up, because he may be like, okay, let's go. Let's do 9 holes. Yeah, put your money where your mouth is.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Anthony Mackie, on the other hand, you might be able to beat him. Yeah.
Along the way.
I definitely have no golf game, so no problem there. I will totally concede to
mini golf, on the other hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, does mini golf count?
You know what? The last time I played mini golf, it was an indoor place where they had a bar, and each hole had a spot where you could set your beer when it was your turn to putt. And the more I drank, actually, the better I got. So maybe. Possibly miniature golf if there's alcohol involved. Just don't ask me to bowl. I'm a terrible bowler. It's because my wrists are crap. But yeah, so Secret Invasion. I think this is gonna be one of those one and done. We don't necessarily need another season. It's laid the groundwork I think it needs to. But obviously, we're gonna. I think it may not be immediately, but obviously, the Marvels is going to pick up at some point after this, because we see Nick Fury back on the space station, with Captain Rambeau. So yeah, if Nick Fury thought that he was gonna go back to his space vacation, sorry, Nick, ain't happening. Even if you do have your wife with you.
That could.
And don't piss off Miss Fury. She the thing is, she's a Skrull, but during her time before she and Nick got together, when she was, running, she tried a different face before she took on the face that she's got now. So when she had a different face passing as human, she was actually a SHIELD agent. So she is a Skrull with the same training as Natasha and Clint. As far as guns and self-defense and fighting are concerned. So yeah, don't piss off Priscilla Fury.
If you mess around, you are most definitely gonna find out.
Yeah. I like her though; she's fun. I like all the additions that we got in this. I like Emilia Clarke. I like the addition of Priscilla. I love Olivia Colman in this. So, it's not really any complaints. Just because I'm always, when it comes to the MCU, I'll watch whatever they've given us right there and then. But I always have like the long-term, bigger picture in the back of my mind. So, and I think some people forget that. And that's where I think some complaints come from, because people are just taking in what's being fed to them right there and then. And it's like, I know not everyone is like diehard like me and has like the schedule memorized and all, has it, I'm like taking every single little thing that comes from Marvel and Kevin Feige and all that. But even then, it's like, even if you're just a general fan, more content is coming that's going to be connected to the universe. So it's like, even if you don't know the titles and the potential plots that are coming, we've been doing this for long enough. You have to know it's all connected. And therefore, you can't take everything at face value. You have to remember that this is connected to a way bigger picture.
There's some smoke and mirrors and some certain point of views that have yet to be revealed.
Exactly. I will get off my soapbox now. Rant over for now.
All right. Well, if any of our listeners want to contribute to the rant or the discussion or whatever, whatever your flavor of the month is, and as long as it pertains to something we've talked about and fits on the podcast, the lawyers made me say that, except we don't have lawyers. Yeah, I just made me say that.
I'll pretend lawyers.
Anyways,
Yes.
or pretend lawyers. That was just a long way of saying you can send in feedback, and our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is thefivishfangirls.com, and you can find links to our show notes, to our social media, to our YouTube and iTunes and all the things there. And also you can help support the podcast if you would be so kind, and if you can, through Patreon or our merch shop. And like I said, there's links to all that on our website. And however you choose to support us, whether that's through Patreon or comments, feedback, we thank you for it, because you guys are awesome. We love our listeners. We love our peeps. And even if you're Skrulls, we'll still love you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Last I checked, none of us are Skrulls. So
right.
Nobody has to.
Nope, still not a Skrull.
Yeah. It's like, accidentally give yourself a paper cut. Is the blood red? Okay, you're good. You're human. Or at least not a Skrull. I don't know. There may be other species out there in the MCU that bleed the same color as the rest of us. So that's one thing they kept, like, when they were trying to get Rhodey to expose himself as a Skrull for the president of the United States, because that's what Skrull Rhodey was doing, was trying to get the president to order an attack on Russia. And they kept saying to Skrull Rhodey, because the president was like, I don't, nobody would believe him. It was like, well, I'd have to kill you. And it's like, no, you don't have to kill someone to prove they're a Skrull, because Olivia Colman proved that with the guy she was torturing. When she cut off his finger, the finger turned back into a Skrull finger. So it's like, you could just cut off the end of someone's finger, and if they bleed green and that piece of finger turns green, they're a Skrull. So it's like, you don't have to kill them to prove they're a Skrull. It just makes it easy.
Right.
But whatever. So anyway, rants.
Yeah, that makes, I gotta say, if that's part of your job description, just in general, cutting off people's fingers to make sure they're not Skrulls, it's like, what the heck do you even do? Try bringing that up at the cocktail party.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Or,
on that note,
whatever. On that note.
On that note, we'll sign off. Before I get out on a soapbox. I need my soapbox to get a break before next week.
We're getting very silly.
That too.
On that
note. Too, because I'm not as tired as I was last week, fresh off of Gen Con. So
you don't even have that excuse. All right, let's boogie, ladies.
Yep.
So this is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. I mean, this quote right here, I think this tells you exactly the type of person that Sonya Fallsworth is like. I think a more apt question would be, who would you like me to be? I'm staggeringly versatile. To give you a couple of examples, I'm very good at being your bestie. I'm also devilishly good at being not your bestie. It's really just a matter of taste. Cake or death? So British.
Thank you for listening to the Fiveish Fangirls. Please visit thefiveishfangirls.com for details on how to further support the show, along with information on our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back. We love our Fiveish fam and appreciate all of your feedback, shares, and encouragement. Remember to keep letting your geek flag fly.